You're watching InTechnology, a video cast where you can get smarter about cybersecurity, sustainability, and technology.
Hi, I'm Camille Moreira, host of InTechnology podcast, and I want to give a brief intro to the conversation we're about to play because it's a little bit different than some of our other ones. I am very happy to let you know I have Kelsey Moreira on, and she is CEO and founder of a company called Doughp that makes legit cookie dough. So you're correct. This has nothing to do with technology, her company, but I got to know her when she was working at Intel and we were putting out a product together. She's very well versed in technology and has a strong background there. She's also phenomenal at business and has been recognized for that by Forbes, making the 30 under 30 list. And she's also been in Shark Tank a couple of times. She was so good at business that I don't think I was the only one who was surprised when she quit her job at Intel and started her own company based on her passion of baking. But her company, Doughp, does more than just produce the cookie dough. It's also heavily invested in every way you can think of in supporting people who are going through addiction recovery. I'm very happy to have Kelsey on. She herself is in recovery, and so she tells a very candid story and provides very candid advice to companies about how they can embrace and support all of their employees. She is also just really fun and humorous and has a ton of energy. I don't know where it all comes from. And on top of all of that, she's pregnant. And so you'll hear us reference her unborn baby daughter, Olivia. Please enjoy the episode.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's great to see you
And
again.
Olivia.
Yes,
And Olivia.
don't forget, she's on stage. She's just slightly out of view, but she's there.
Is it her first podcast?
It's her first podcast today. This is a big deal. You did it. It's awesome.
All right. Kelsey, for anybody who doesn't know, is a serious star. She quit her job in tech, which was very sad to me, but probably a good thing for the world because she went and started this amazing company. But tell us a little bit about your journey to get there.
It's funny because it really all starts with Intel back in the day. Getting this chance to go work at Intel, I was just 16 years old when I started. I was a high school intern working, part-time through the school years and full-time every summer. It was an amazing opportunity that turned into a 10-year career at Intel from just such a young age. So what was an awesome opportunity to learn from amazing leaders, much like yourself, getting to work in your group there towards the end of my time at Intel. It was also really hard on my mental health, and I was struggling from a pretty early age with seeing my achievements and like what I was doing in the world as my self-worth and a way that I could get some attention. My parents are going through a divorce when I was 6 years old, and I feel like I saw the joy I could bring to them when I was doing good, and those connections got really strong. And so when I would get even a B on a test in school, I was in hysterics. I just could barely take it. So fast forward to any performance review where there was even the most minute sense of feedback, and I was distraught, like I had failed. So I was really, really hard on myself. And for me, when I first found alcohol, I was 14 years old the first time I drank. And I drank till I blacked out the very first time. And I had this, like, for the first time ever, sense like I was everybody else. Like I didn't have to be on, and I was just carefree and relaxed and the life of the party Kelsey that could just, yeah, pretend like I was like everybody else and didn't have all this weight on me. So it started a pretty unhealthy drinking career over the years. I was able to mask it with this amazing career, growing at Intel, great grades. I was something like 21 credits my first semester in college, got straight A's, and I was, blacking out probably like 5 nights a week and still working at Intel part-time. So I was really able to mask it and still have this kind of like party life Kelsey that was going on in my personal life, but be all on at work all the time. And so no one really knew, the struggles I was going through behind the scenes. But in 2015, I made the amazing decision to finally get sober. I was on a business trip with Intel in Barcelona, and just had the last hurrah, if you will, the last night, and woke up that morning like, I never want to feel like this again. I'm so tired of apologizing for things I barely remember doing, and I want to make a change. So I got sober, and that opened up like the whole world to me. Like got me to figure out who I am and what I love to do, and that is eat and make desserts in large part. So that's really where it all started and formed into, where I am today with Doughp.
So who was the first person you called?
Yeah, I called my Nana first. So she was 21 years sober when she passed away. And, like many people who struggle with addiction, or even just mental health struggles, and you've got people who, are worried about you and are reaching out through the years, like with concern. She was probably the cheerleader for that group for me, writing me letters over the years, like wanting me to get on the right path. So I called her that morning and said, a short version of what had happened and that I was done and I wanted to get sober. And she was like, well, you better get your wee butt to a AA meeting in her Scottish accent that I won't try and mimic right now. But very kindly just said, yeah, that she wanted me to find a meeting and like, I'm here for you. I'm going to support you. And I did. I found an English speaking AA meeting that morning in Barcelona, made it through that 7-day conference in my first 7 days of sobriety, which is crazy. And yeah, and flew home after that to literally feeling like my life was ending. I had lost a relationship of 4 years at the time, had blown up, with that night. And everything just felt like it was falling apart. But, brick by brick, you just pick yourself up and get going and take the next step forward.
So my favorite question from my daughter was like, when did you know you'd made it?
Oh, that's so sweet. You know, I think the answer is honestly, you'll never feel like you made it, is what I'm learning. It's like making it is the journey. Like making it is realizing that like, everything I've learned to date is making it is like worth it. But there's no finite point where I've been like, this is it, because when you have this personality where you want to keep building, you want to keep growing. I had no idea when I first started that it would be as big as it is now. Like I remember calling my dad when we hit $100,000 in sales, and I was like, "Oh my God, we've sold $100,000 of cookie dough, and now we're past 13 million in lifetime sales." I mean, the scale just gets so much bigger. But when you're in those moments, it's just where you are, and like the next hurdle, the next obstacle, the next point to hit is just, you know, that's all I've been really looking at as I keep growing it. So I've never been like, this is it, we made it. Shark Tank was pretty cool, but I didn't feel like, all right, I made it, rest on my laurels. Like it's hard work. Running a food business is no joke. And the obstacles and the learning and the challenges just keep presenting themselves. So yeah, still going. I'll let her know if I end up feeling like I've made it one day.
Did you ever have a moment where you were like having to decide on sort of your morals or your conscience or your ethics or your, code or whatever it is, as opposed to some other kind of bigger step or offer or
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I've had some less than enjoyable experiences fundraising, where you have to be like, this is inappropriate and, this is not someone I want to take funding from, and be okay with walking away from, what would have been an amazing, like life-changing access to capital, and, know that your morals and standards are more important than that. So there's been a little bit of that. I'd say, in the business world, one thing we've really had to stick with is like the decision for us with Doughp for Hope and how important the mission was going to be for the company. It's really easy for businesses to say, things have gotten too hard. Like, we haven't been profitable for the last 3 years. Like, we've got to cut costs. Like, we need to cut the mission. And for me, it's just been like, absolutely not. Like, no chance are we letting that go. Not even willing to entertain changing it. Like, the amount that we donate, 1% of all of our sales. We've had talks of like, should we go to a percent of profits? And those things come up. Other people kind of bring it up when we're getting advised on our financial situation. And it's like, nope, like we can talk about cutting anything else, but like, I'm just not cutting what we're doing with the mission. It's like, it's the whole why I can keep going through how hard and challenging this is. Like, it keeps me going. It's, yeah, you really have to have like a North Star for why you're doing what you're doing. And I know we're helping so many people, and there was no way that I'm going to sacrifice on that. So
So tell us a little bit more about Doughp for Hope.
yeah, so 2017, I was, newly into business, maybe 6 months in, and we were getting our first I can't really call this one a storefront because it was a kiosk, but it was like a physical space and we would no longer have to pack for events out of my apartment. So I was very excited. It was going to be a real like 10 by 10 space that was, for Doughp, a little cookie dough bar on Market Street in San Francisco. And the grand opening day was my 2-year sobriety anniversary, like on the exact day. So on the Facebook event, I said, if you say it's dope to be sober at checkout, you'll get 20% off in honor of the founder's sober birthday. And I didn't expect to see much from this, but our DMs were just like filling up with people saying, some that they were 2 weeks sober and wondering if I knew of any good meetings in the city. And another person was 13 years sober and telling me how he had never told anyone. And it was really cool to see me sharing this publicly. And I just had such a light bulb moment then of like how alone I felt when I was going through it, and it took me a long time to say I'm ready to get sober because I didn't want to be different. I felt like I was going to be the only one that had to deal with this. And why couldn't I just be like everybody else? And when you're newly sober, and everyone else seems like they're drinking and everyone else seems like they have it together, this really reminded me that like, I'm totally not alone. Like there's a bunch of people out there who also feel like they're the only ones going through it, but we're all here. We're just quiet. And we've, through a number of reasons in the past, this stigma that's surrounded it has made people want to stay quiet around it, that something was wrong with you if you needed to get sober, or you were, a liability or a bad person. And, people would ask me like, when I was early on, if you're going to fundraise, are you going to tell investors that you're sober? Aren't you worried about what they'll think? And I'm like, I can't wait to tell them I'm sober. Like, it's the coolest thing about me. It's like, hey, I saw something wasn't working in my life and I changed it. And look at all the great that's come from that. I mean, that's kick ass. That's something you should be really proud to share. And so Doughp for Hope was really, how can I help break the stigma around mental health and addiction recovery and let people know it's okay to not be okay and really make an impact around it. So we do a bunch for our community, like elevating the conversation, trying to make it easier to talk about, share real stories of real people going through it, helpful resources and all of that. We do like a mental health Monday text blast, for example. We just had another one this Monday that says, give us one high and one low from your last week. A real person's waiting to respond. And, this is text to, we got something like 40,000 people on our text list. And we have hundreds and hundreds of messages and conversations that start from that with people who just didn't have anybody to ask them how they're doing, and haven't really been able to stop and share what's been really hard on their minds. But yeah, someone tweeted like, it's really cool to see Doughp, cares about this. Like mental health can be so exhausting. And it's funny to see a cookie dough place doing it. And I'm always like, if not us, then who? Like, it doesn't matter what we sell, we can try and make an impact. So the community is a big portion of it. And then inside the company is the next pillar for it, really focused on not just being a business that's out there like, oh, we plant a tree for every blank, or we do these things in outside world. I wanted to make sure that like it was also happening in the company. I wasn't just talking about how important mental health was, but I was letting my employees talk about theirs. And so I made a really robust mental health policy early 2018 that rolled out. And I have a template of it on my website. I share with other employers and founders just to get ideas going about how you could bring these conversations to light in the workplace. Doughp is a designated recovery-friendly workplace, which is a designation in something like 25 states now. They have a program here to help people understand how to build environments that let their employees bring their full selves to work across mental health, addiction, and suicide prevention as well. And then the last piece is donations. And honestly, I thank Intel a lot when I talk about this, that my time working for Intel showed me in many facets how a company can be totally for profit, but gosh, look at all the good that they can do along the way. I was the benefit of one of those Intel IESE trips, got to go to the Philippines, and we were bringing technology to a school that had been devastated by a typhoon. And that was just such an incredible thing. Like, mind you, that was about a week after that Barcelona trip when I got sober. I'm not sure if you remember this, Camille, but it was a crazy whirlwind for me of like home for a week. And then that volunteer trip was coming. But
I didn't know you were going through the other side of it. I knew about the trips, but I never knew like the giant transformation that was happening in your life at that time.
Yeah, all overlapped, but kind of beautiful in a way that this trip was like, take yourself out from all these things that, oh, it feels like the end of the world. And then you're seeing kids who are like, just like almost in tears, excited seeing themselves on a webcam for the first time, on a little tablet or something. So we decided to donate 1% of all of our sales company-wide to nonprofits that work in the space. The last 2 years, we've been partnered with the She Recovers Foundation. They're for women or those who identify with women's communities that are in or seeking recovery, and across lots of things. They have this phrase that like, we're all in recovery from something. So life challenges, mental health, substance use disorder, whatever your thing is, they've got a community for it. And we've donated more than $100,000 to date through Doughp for Hope. So
that's very cool. So just on a personal note, is sobriety something that's like a daily struggle for you, or is it not a struggle? How would you characterize it?
in the phase that I'm in my life now, I live in a very small town in East Texas. I'm like 3 minutes away from my grandpa. It's basically a retirement community. I'd say my median friend age is like 75. So my daily pressures to drink, like I used to face when I was, living in Portland when I originally got sober, or living, in San Francisco for a time, mid 20s, newly sober. Those were different, and it certainly was like really everyday reminders that I go a different path. And I wouldn't say there's a day that it doesn't come up. You go out to dinner, you go to a friend's house or anything, and they're having beers, and I just don't. I have a mocktail or some fun, non-alcoholic drink. So it's always on my mind. And the scariest thing is like when you think you've beat it. You meet people. I've met people who have 30 years of sobriety, and then one day they're just like, I think it's been long enough, I think it's fine, and go back to it. And as many stories go, like it wasn't fine. You still are the alcoholic inside. And I've just been able to get much better with mental health coping mechanisms. And I call it like my mental health recipe card. What are the things I need to be doing to keep myself feeling good and feeling grounded? And yeah, it's just been that next first drink will never be worth it. I just can't get there.
Whew, what amazing, amazing, amazing story. Like really. Okay, who did you first bake with?
Gosh, first bake with probably my mom. My mom she's a really great cook, but also loved to bake. And this is poignant for Doughp, because one of the things she would do with me after the divorce, like when I'd be going back to her house, she had this cookbook called the Great Cookie Cookbook, and it was like 100 cookie recipes. And so she'd be like, you can pick any recipe in here and we'll make it together, this next week or whatever. So lots of baking with her, but then tons of baking with my Nana over the years. When I was young, and then after getting sober, like I have some really great memories. She passed when I was 1 year sober, so just after I'd hit a year. So she got to see Monster Baby Bakery when I was doing the baked goods, bringing stuff into the office at Intel, and enough folks like you saying, hey, could you make something for my kid's birthday? I had a business pre-Doughp, to do this at-home bakery. So she got to see that, which was really awesome.
Mm-hmm. And so whose recipe is Ride or Die? That's your original recipe, right?
Yeah, the classic. So Ride or Die, and the base recipe for that is what I've used for every flavor I've made since, being able to adjust for what I want to create. It really was like an on accident creation. So when I was moved down to San Francisco, it was maybe 6 to 8 months sober or so. I got a new job inside of Intel to go down to the Santa Clara office. And like many people who transplant to the Bay Area, I tried being a vegan. I thought like you needed to do that to get, initiated into the city. So in my attempt to be a vegan, which I totally failed at, if you just ate some dope, there's butter in it, I did find a really great substitute for raw eggs. And so I was using this flaxseed substitute, but starting to bake with butter again. And so my cookie recipe that I'd been making, probably for the last year or so since getting sober at that time, I'd kind of stuck with this one chocolate chip cookie recipe. It was now safe to eat raw and able to be baked. So I was like saving a bowl of it to snack on through the week in my fridge and baking a few cookies when I wanted it. And yeah, that's when the light bulb went off. And amazingly, we have not changed the recipe in all these years. The only thing was like reducing the salt a little bit. When you scale up a recipe to these large sizes, you often have to make quite a few changes, but the only thing we did was reduce the salt a little from my homemade version of it. And that's it. It's the same Ride or Die for all these years, which is awesome.
Do you still bake?
I do. Cakes and everything. I'm like the resident birthday cake maker around here. So when someone's having a birthday or we're having a party, like I love to make the layer cake still. I haven't gone as detailed as those panda cupcakes I made way back for your child's birthday back in the day, but yeah, I still bake. I bake cookies. So it's funny because you start a company because you love to do something, and then very quickly you're running a company not baking cookies anymore. I won't say very quickly. I was still sweating it out in the commercial kitchen for probably the first like year and a half or so. And then we moved to co-packers and it's just, scaled up from there with the production. So yeah, not doing it in my kitchen, but I try to make a point of keeping it as a, personal hobby and still a big part of my, who I am and what I love to do that I got to discover in sobriety. This little community that I live in with all these older people, just tell you this one quick. These old ladies think it's so funny when you started hearing about Doughp and, it's big news, like, wow, the Shark Tank thing is like, they're here in Hideaway. And they're like, so you're making all that cookie dough in your kitchen? Like they think I'm producing all of the cookie dough here in Hideaway, Texas. I'm like, no, not anymore. Just I could make you some, but no, we're not doing it all here. So they can't understand how you could run a company from from not where you're producing it.
So where do you make it?
Yeah, it's all produced and fulfilled out of Las Vegas. So when we transitioned from having storefronts, so I had San Francisco's Pier 39, and then we opened up on the Las Vegas Strip. The Shark Tank episode in 2019 came out just after opening that store on the Strip. Fast forward a year later, the pandemic hits and our e-commerce business was like skyrocketing. We went from like 30 boxes a month in November of 19 to 3,000 a week in April of 2020. So our whole business model just like flipped on its head. Our storefronts were shuttered with the quarantine. We decided to shut down the San Francisco store and by October of 2020 shut down the Vegas store. So what I, spent most of the second half of 2020 doing was getting our supply chain established with my husband had joined the company at that time. And, getting everything set up to have manufacturing and fulfillment in Vegas there with us. And slowly but surely, as like, wheels started turning and things were moving, we were just like working from our home office every day going, why are we still in Vegas? Like we don't actually need to be here when we're using, these great partners that we've gotten set up. So we were able to move here to be close to my papa in Texas and yeah, let all the manufacturing and fulfillment live there. Goes back to visit the facilities probably like once a quarter now.
But you're still, I mean, like you pointed out before, Olivia's been all over the place. You're traveling. What's like a day in the life or a week in the life for you? What does it look like now?
The best thing about it compared to Intel life, right, of like going from corporate to what I do now is I literally can't tell you a like week in the life of Kelsey because it's always different. Like, depending on where I'm going or what I'm doing. I mean, the public speaking has been such a great component to pick up. Not only is it great for Doughp and you're, getting more people to see the name, but getting to share my story and inspire people, to make a change in their life, whatever it is. I feel so fulfilled. So that's been really fun to pick up. So a sprinkling of public speaking events. I'm going just to Dallas, not too far, but for a panel next week to speak. So there's a little bit of that that's been sprinkled in, sampling events for different companies. So lots of the travel's been with Costco. They have us on a roadshow tour this summer. Going out 4 days straight, all the hours that Costco's open, telling people why this is life-changing cookie dough and you need to buy it and come and try it immediately. So it's high energy, very fun. I had to skip out on these final two because I am just too pregnant to make it happen. It was a lot for me, but yeah, we've split the business operation, like management between Iz and I. I handle more of the sales and marketing. So day-to-day office stuff for me is managing the marketing team, being the closer, getting on when we can get a call with, a new potential client, whether it's in food service or in retail. It's that kind of magic spark of being the inspiration. I run the product development as well. So all the dreaming of like, what do we want to do next? What's the roadmap for us for new product innovation? I make product briefs still all this time later, like I used to at Intel. They're a little more fun. There's more exclamation points and a little more wild than what I used to do. But yeah, it's still lots of product marketing. Just I went from processor chips to chocolate chips. So
You have always struck me as a very confident person. You've always been very competent. But you kind of like have a way of shining. Bring a lot of energy and light, and is that just innate? Have you ever like not felt confident, and then it's a show you put on, or is this just a natural like how you move through life?
I guess I would say it's like a self-fulfilling way of being. Like propels itself. So the more like excited and energetic you are, like the more pleasant interactions with other people are, you're able to like exude something that helps other people feel more relaxed or comfortable, or to laugh. Like I, even when I meet someone who's quite grumpy, or if they're on the customer service line or something with someone who's really just not having the best day, it's like, I really love like trying to see how I can help them laugh, or like have a, shake up from the monotony that like they've been going through. So that's been a big part of it. I think, yeah, I have been kind of like this personality of like bright, bubbly, confident since I was little. Like in the neighborhood, they used to say like Kelsey's going to be the first female president. It's like the joke when I was growing up, like, 8, 9 years old. Like I just was always a very curious kid, asking lots of questions, like wanting to learn and know and be a part of all the adult conversations. I was never afraid to talk to a stranger. I have very outgoing parents too. So I think I learned a lot of those ways of being from them, that you don't have to be serious all the time. They're fun and funny people. So yeah, I think that kind of like helped pave the way for me to know that it's okay to be like this. And the confidence blend with vulnerability that like has come so full circle into what I do with Doughp, that has also been so rewarding. Like the more vulnerable you can be, it lets someone else let their guard down and share something that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise. So when I'm sharing about my recovery journey on a call with a retail buyer who, probably never has these kind of conversations with vendors, he is sharing about how his daughter, just got sober 2 years ago, or is, examples from investors who are saying, their daughter or aunt or sister, whoever you name it, is struggling. And this kind of barrier breaking of like, we're all going through it. Like we're all just humans. Yes, we all have these little roles and we're showing up to do these things. And, you're an investor. We're trying to work together to get this money. We're all human. And like, if 1 in 12 Americans are in active recovery, chances are pretty high that like I'm talking to somebody who either is in recovery or has someone who's struggling too. So that's really helped me to feel even more confident in like owning my story, like owning my decisions, owning who I am, and knowing that like if I'm just myself, I'll attract the right people and have people around me who like who I am. Then there was no like facade or mask to keep up. It's just it just gets to be me. So
what's your number one sort of thought about motherhood? It's right around the corner.
I'm scared shitless. Yeah, no, it's right around the corner. But this last year, as we started to get a little bit more stabilized and, we made it through the pandemic, we started to grow the retail channel, like things were feeling a little more secure. And this like biological clock just started ticking of saying like, you need to be a mom. You've got to do this. So I'm really excited. It's so fun. It's interesting to see how this little thing, big decision, but little thing can so drastically change how you view what's important in the world. There's just no question of like, we're gonna make this work, and figuring out how to, make my workload and what we need to do with Doughp work so that I can still, care and spend time for and bond with our child. So yeah, I'm very excited is all I can say about it. We'll see what happens. It's going to be the wildest adventure yet, but I think I've got some good training with stress levels at Doughp, overwhelm, and running the company with my husband too. I think it's a lot more than some parents have when they first go into parenthood. We've certainly, been through some challenges together and learned how to communicate well. So I'm excited.
It's really, really cool. Congratulations, actually, on everything.
Thank you. Thank you. Business baby and the real
baby. And sobriety and all the rest of it, coming into yourself and like growing up into such an amazing human. You've always been an amazing human, and like it's just really cool to see how cool you are, and everything that you're doing to help other people. So thank you, Kelsey Moreira, CEO and founder of Doughp, Legit Cookie Dough, and so much more. Doughp for Hope. Thanks for joining today on the podcast.
Never miss an episode of InTechnology by following us here on YouTube or wherever you get your audio podcasts.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the guests and author and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Intel Corporation.
you.